Greetings and welcome to this first installment in this new little series about my venture into Hasselblad photography and thereby also in extension the National Aeronautic and Space Administration NASA photography. But anyway, this is going to be a little bit of an overview and history lesson all in one, where I go over the camera selection and a little bit of the history of the agency I have based my decisions on. Fair point also, I have taken a little bit of artistic license in the selection of the kit, but I'm gonna present said kit in this fashion, in a little bit of historical content and so on. So yeah, first a little bit sip of Wally coffee and we will be on our way. So, put you to the side. First off, the cheat sheet is back, but this time it's a little bit of a overview of the points I want to discuss when I present the camera body I have selected in the Hasselblad lineup. But anyway, we are going to start then with that in the early flights of the Mercury program that was started in the early 1960s as a response to the Soviet cosmonaut and so their space program, the first flights, they deemed that 35mm would be inadequate for the type of photography they wanted to do, that NASA aspired to do during their missions, because 35mm was deemed to lack or were inadequate in clarity and resolution, so a substitute had to be found. US Navy pilot turned astronaut Wally Schirra was the first that actually corresponded with a lot of publishers and aspired photographers in the 60s, and he wanted them to come up with ideas for a suitable camera for the space flights that would meet the requirements set by NASA. And the camera of choice was the 500C, the Hasselblad 500C that was introduced in 1957, and the camera lens of choice was the Carl Zeiss 80mm f2.8 planar lens, and those were the first ones that were flown on Mercury Atlas 8, flown by Schirra in October the 3rd, 1962. And also here a little bit of a find I did on Petapixel from November 2017. Photographer Cole Rice makes a Mercury 500C replica where he makes it exactly like the one flown by Schirra and other astronauts on the early Mercury Mercury flights. And what they actually did was that they removed a whole bunch of features. They removed the mirror, they removed the the regular viewfinder, and just to shave weight, and they milled out, NASA machine shops milled out all the unnecessary metal from the camera, so they would actually remove grams from the camera body, because in the early days of space flight everything was about saving weight. Yeah, but anyway, those are a little bit of the early flights where they used the 500C, heavily modified nonetheless. They even took away the open and close mechanism of the film magazine in order to it not being accidentally opened during flight, so they used a wrench instead when they were back on the ground. But anyway, then a little bit of memorabilia here. The first time they updated to the 500EL series, which stood for electronic, which was the camera body that could automatically advance the film to the next frame, was used on Apollo 8 and in December of 1968. And the crew was Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and William Anders. The camera body, or rather here is a commemorative photography of the 3 astronauts. Don't know if I'm gonna get flares on this or not. Hopefully not. And this is also mock autographed. This is a second man Apollo crew, the prime crew members of Apollo 8. Left to right, James A. Lovell Jr., Commander Module Pilot, William A. Anders, Lunar Module Pilot, and Frank Borman, Commander. The Apollo 8 crew is scheduled to be launched into lunar orbit by a Saturn V. That's the image text for this little memorabilia. And also then, no further waiting, and we're gonna take it out now. Here we see the 500 ELM, the camera that I chose to base my NASA camera gear off. The 500 ELM is basically a 500 CM with a attached motor drive. This one has a little bit of other features as well that we're gonna go through in just a minute. Yeah, as such. But also a little bit about the crew of the Apollo 8 flight. There was the first circle lunar flight, and the camera gear that was taken with them, except for the 500 EL camera bodies, the lenses that were brought were a 250mm, a 80mm, and a 60mm size lenses with specially made 70mm film backs. That is if you ever seen some of Tarantino's latest flicks, he also used 70mm film when he did those movies. Also, as you might see here, I'm gonna probably take a better image of it as well. My camera is modified also with a couple of different features. First of all, it is the NASA square trigger plate switch button. It is part number 46345. I've been able to find out. If that is incorrect, please notify me in the comment section below. But anyway, we're also gonna take a look here. I have the, let's see now, here we go. The original trigger is this little small button that is comparable to the one used on the normal non-motorized Hasselblad bodies, but this one was deemed inadequate for the astronauts to use in their spacesuits because of the big fingered gloves. So they needed this larger trigger in order to operate it with gloves, among other things. Okay, also special to the EL versions of this Hasselblad is the selector on the side here. You have the numbers, or rather the writings of O, S, A, AS, and RSR. The definitions for these are that O is single shot normal mode, which most photographers would use it in. S is mirror pre-release, which means that for one shot only, the mirror will be raised and you will be able to take a mirror up image to minimize shake, which would be useful in certain types of photography, mainly close-ups. A is continual motor drive mode. As long as the shutter button is depressed, the camera will just keep taking images until the roll is out. Then you have AS, which is continual motor drive plus mirror held up between frames, which means that the mirror will be in a locked up position and the camera will continuously take images until it is depleted of frames. Then finally we have SR, which is mirror pre-released and mirror held up after shutter release, which means the mirror will never reset between images. Also on the bottom here you have a 3-position lever switch, which has the markings L, O, and T, which T is time exposure, which means that if you put your lens on brief time or bellows, you can actually make long time exposures with this camera body in a very efficient and easy to manage way. Then you have O, which is the standard setting, which works in conjunction with the upper switch. And then you have the L system, which locks the entire system and you won't drain the batteries. So this is a bit of the overview of this camera system thus far. And also the original EL and ELM in certain variants used a special nickel metal hydride battery that is fairly hard to obtain in today's market, but this one has been factory modified to use AA batteries. So it has 3 + 2, so 5 batteries of AA type that is housed in this lower section of the camera body. And you even have this little, I don't know how well it will be shown here, but you have a little bit of a battery test button here that will show you if you have adequate amount of power in the camera for shooting. Also, as you have seen on many Hasselblads before, you have the old school waist level viewfinder and the magnifier as well on top of it. Also special with the ELM, that is the same as the CM, is that the focusing screen is replaceable without any special tooling required. So that's a bit of the overview of the camera body that I have chosen for this little Hasselblad journey. And as you can see, also a little bit of a caveat, it is the all black version. It came in originally, the EL and ELM came in 2 different variants. It was the black and chrome, which is the classic Hasselblad, the all black, which I went for here, and then later the commemorative lunar version that was in a silver or silver white version, but those are more the the more collectible versions. Also, I know that Nico from Nico's photography show, if you take a look at his channel, he's a Spaniard who I would really recommend to anybody who's into film photography. He has done some really splendid work when he went to Photokina this year and interviewed a lot of famous YouTube personalities and photographers. Among others were Bellamy Hunt or Japan Camera Hunter. So, yeah, a little bit of coffee here now. Yes, so in this case I would like to thank you all for watching this little overview of the Hasselblad/NASA series. I've already introduced the camera bag to be in a previous installment, and this will be the first real one of this little, what should we say, endeavor into Hasselblad or 6x6 photography, among other things. So in the next video, I believe I'm going to introduce to you some of the other accessories that I have chosen. Some are on their way and some I've already gotten. But this is going to be a growth journey that you will all be a part of, I hope. So, as always, this is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo X1.5 to FX, and I'd like to see you guys in the next video. And if you have anything on your mind for this one, any type of recommendations or anything, or what film stock to use with this to make it more authentic, please put a comment about that in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next installment of this little Hasselblad NASA history course of photography. So, as always, take care from now on, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.